We cannot and should not be assuming anyone's gender.
It doesn't matter if your misgendering is intentional or accidental.
Y'all are, just robots, so you don't actually know what you're following. But for those of us that read, we know exactly what you're doing. Grown men march around in high heels to protest male violence against women. Well, guess that solves that problem.
Misgendering is incorrectly referring to a person's gender by incorrectly assuming their gender identity or using incorrect pronouns.
It doesn't matter if your misgendering is intentional or accidental. What it really is harmful, disrespectful, and exhausting.
We can fight misgendering by remembering that we cannot and should not be assuming anyone's gender.
Our assumptions are not what define others' realities.
So it doesn't matter the intention. This is the world they live in. It doesn't matter if you actually tried to harm them. It didn't matter if it was intentional, accidental. You are just as much of a, heretic, a sinner. I mean, that's just a sick way to live. And I can see that it's exhausting. You look quite sleepy, right? You're asleep. Y'all call yourselves woke, but you're very much asleep, right? Wake up. And going back to that call me shit. Let's look at this study right here. Let me find this. 44% of millennials think referring to someone by the wrong gender should be a criminal offense. That's how much y'all have been, like I just said to this other trick, demoralized. That you are willing to give up speech rights as liberals. Y'all are willing to sell freedom and humanity and truth down the river because you don't want your feelings hurt. That's sick. And I don't care how offensive this sounds. Sometimes y'all need just like a swift boot in your ass. If you're getting misgendered everywhere you go, 99% of the time, it's your fault. It's your fault for having expectations that don't line up with how you're actually showing up in the world, right? And again, this is because 99% of the time, it is accidental. I know y'all are narcissists, so you think everyone's thinking about you at all times, but most people really aren't thinking about you, babe. I promise you the most humbling thing you come to the realization of as an adult is that people don't really think about you that much. Ain't nobody going through their mind spinning, what do I call this person? It's instinctual. And it's based on how you look on an instinctual level. Not saying people don't intentionally try to, hurt people they think might be trans, of course. But at the end of the day, like, I'm one of the most public trans people on the planet. Most places I go, especially here in Austin, Texas, like, people kind of know who I am. Not everyone, obviously. I'm not fucking Beyonce, but usually at any establishment I go to, there's like one person who's like, Blaire. Everyone kind of knows I'm trans, whether you're clocking me or not, because I'm publicly a famous trans person. Guess who doesn't go around getting misgendered? And that's not me bragging. That's me showing up in the world a specific way. So if you're not doing that, tough shit, get it together. Sometimes things are in your control, right? And that should make you happy. That should be good news. Oh, it's in my control. I can fix it. But y'all don't want to fix your problems. You live in your problems. You live in darkness. You live in that misery. But not everyone does. And I know y'all hate being told to work, right? You hate it. But transition is work. It's more than a Party City wig. It's a very specific life when you are a transsexual who transitions. It involves a lot of work. And as your payoff, you're going to walk into Target, CVS, right? Party City, the bar, wherever. And people are going to see you for the internal self that you are truly bringing out. But when you're just an entitled simpleton who thinks that you can walk in somewhere with a Party City wig and or a beard and still be called she, and then to you, there's just no difference between, intention has no bearing. That's a you problem. That's a you problem. And how you're navigating the world clearly isn't working. But sometimes you take things in your own hands. But that's if you're a creator, right? And we can get back to who's a creator and who's not, right? They're clearly replicators, right? They're replicating the life of people who created a life before them. They saw trans people transition in the past, which is inherently a creation, whether you would agree with it or not. Like me changing my entire presence, my name, all that, that's creating something new. And you can disagree that that's a right thing, a moral thing, or whatever thing. But back in the day, it was a thing. You created a life. Y'all want to live in the shadow of people who created and just imitate, but not take on any of the work. And that's what the real disconnect is. And y'all can sit in that misery, or you can nut up. I know you still have them because you don't believe in transitioning. Use those nuts and work. Woke influencer unintentionally creates epic campaign ad for Trump. Let's see.
You may have heard of Project 2025, but this is from Agenda 47, and you can read all of these on his website. First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history.
Get out!
He will also ask for the death sentence for anyone convicted of human trafficking. He will close the Department of Education and return all education standards to the states to decide. He will put prayer back into school, and he will criminalize any race-based advantage programs. He will end the Affordable Care Act. He will ban gender-affirming care for adults and children, and he will ban any federal dollars from going towards gender-affirming care, which means anyone with government-provided health care will no longer be able to access gender-affirming care except for...
They love lying about that, by the way. Like, can I just say, that's a complete fucking lie. Trump has not promised you ban it for adults. And why y'all run with this sick lie, I see it everywhere. And then you look at what they quote from Trump saying, and he is specifically talking about kids. But, you know, y'all are big on those self-fulfilling prophecies. So if you want it that bad, keep pushing for it, bitch. I'll always figure out a way to get my E. I swear to God, I will. I don't care. Girl, I will always figure out a way to keep my transition going. But keep pushing it. Y'all might lose access to that shit if that's what you want so damn bad. Anytime I see someone, I get tagged in this shit, right? Like, I'm the right-wing trainer, so I get tagged in this shit. I'll get tagged by libs talking about, Blaire, what do you think about him saying this? He's going to ban gender-affirming care. And it's always, always, always in the context of kids. Not once has he made the declaration that it's for adults. And again, you're lucky he's not. You're lucky he's not, because clearly you want it so damn bad. You're manifesting it. You're speaking it into existence constantly, right? And I will always find a way to get my shit, right? I will always find a way to keep the transition going. Maybe y'all can't, because apparently y'all can't even afford, this always kills me, by the way. Y'all talk about how hormone prescriptions, and it's just so inaccessible to people, and y'all complain about the cost. My hormones cost me $30 once a month. $30. $35.99, right?
The ones I picked up today were $11.
He picked up my hormones this morning. $11. Sorry, even I was overdoing it, right? In Texas, my hormones with no insurance, out of pocket, make his pockets hurt. They're really not hurting because it was $11. $11. And this is what y'all complain about is so inaccessible. If you just took one day out of the week dedicated to finding money on the streets, like quarters, nickels, dimes, you're going to find $11 in a few hours. And if you can't afford it, then maybe it's not time for you to do it, babe.
Be able to access gender-affirming care except for Viagra and Cialis. Those will still be available.
Which is not gender-affirming care at all.
He will propose a constitutional amendment that gives a term limit to Congress. He will deploy the Department of Justice to investigate the Biden crime family and any of his adversaries or political rivals.
Let's go.
He will immediately pardon all of the January 6thers, and he will create a task force to investigate anyone who arrested, charged, or imprisoned a January 6er. He will increase the penalties for underage criminal offenders, strengthen immunity for police officers, and deploy the National Guard to patrol woke cities.
Well, considering every 4 years y'all burn them down, considering every 4 years y'all just decide we should burn this, we should burn all of this, we should kill people on the street, we should riot, we should destroy small businesses, we should have everyone living in fear, maybe y'all should be patrolled. I mean, this one I am a bit conflicted on because I'm really not, you know, some sucker, right? Like, I'm not trying to suck off the National Guard because honestly, during all these every 4 years when y'all burn the shit down, a lot of them don't do shit, right? I remember seeing tanks on my street during the COVID riots of 2020 and they didn't do anything. They let them do it, right? So at some point we got to talk about how all that's been infiltrated too, but I'm really not mad at it, baby. Boy, baby girl, baby they. I'm really not mad at it. Maybe y'all need some grown-ups to tell you, you can't set things on fire. You can't set things on fire, babe.
On day one, he will reassess our participation in NATO and says that every European country needs to pay the United States for protection. He will also restore the wonderful travel ban for Muslims coming to America.
So the Muslim ban. Oh yeah, that time when he specifically paused travel. Paused. Wasn't a ban, ho. Paused travel from countries that Obama flagged as potential terrorist threats. Maybe if the countries that are threatening to kill us, we shouldn't be just letting flood in all at once, right? Maybe that's not so crazy, and it's only crazy when you intentionally word it in a way to make it sound more inflammatory. See, the libs love to look at laws and then rebrand them to mean whatever convenient for their argument, right? So the Don't Say Gay bill, which wasn't called the Don't Say Gay bill, but if you tell a lib that's the first time they've heard that. They swear DeSantis created the Don't Say Gay bill. Didn't happen. They swear Trump did the Muslim ban. It's actually called Executive Order 13769, apparently to Google, but y'all want to call it some to make it seem like whatever fits your narrative, when in reality it was like, hey, these countries are threatening terrorism against America, so maybe we don't just have a free-for-all to let anyone come over. That's called a good president. And if you want to, even take credit away from Trump, you can remember that Obama started it. Obama identified the countries. So who you mad at? Obama? Interesting.
He will build freedom cities. This is 10 new cities built on federal land. He will award them to areas with the best development proposals, and he will prioritize moving young families to these freedom cities.
Oh my God. Hold on. How dare he not do what y'all do? The woke saviors, right? How dare he not look at sick, drug addicted, mentally ill, depressed people on the street and say they must be happy? How dare he be like, you know what? We got to house people. We got to incentivize family. I know y'all hate family because y'all's did you dirty. But you know what? Coming from a bitch whose family has done me dirty in many ways, I don't really relate to having that chip on my shoulder. And it's quite sad that you haven't worked through those issues. Although I know it's more about y'all, whether you know it or not, just falling in line with that communist manifesto, separating family from their parents, right? The playbook, destroying the family unit to destabilize the country. All the shit that's written down has been written down for a long time. Y'all are, just robots, so you don't actually know what you're following. But for those of us that read, we know exactly what you're doing. And I'm not exactly shook about Trump building new cities and incentivizing young families to live in homes and not live in y'all's ghetto, nasty, disaster, horror-ridden cities. Horror-ridden. Like, God forbid he doesn't see people suffering and walk over them like they're just beasts on the street. The thing about liberals is they are the actual supremacists. They're the people that step over homeless, dying people on the street, right? And say, this must be how they choose to live. This is their choice. They must be happy. Nothing's wrong with them. They're unhoused. They're not homeless. They're unhoused. Please don't say homeless. They're people without a home. Conservatives are the ones, y'all know that meme, how conservatives are scared of cities. Well, you know what? Most people that are normal, it's not normal to them to see people sick and dying on the streets and no one helping them. So that fear, y'all are some scary bitches. Who lets people just die on the street? That's never been something I've understood. And in fact, when I look back at, living in LA, it's actually quite sick that I became one of those people that it was just normal for me to see people on the street shooting up, people on the street. You don't know if they're dead or alive. They're not moving. And this is the thing. A lot of y'all are suburb living people, and I get it. And I'm so glad you're in the suburbs and that you're safe, but you really don't know what it's like to actually vote blue, live in a blue city, in a blue state like LA. It's not normal. It's not a normal way for humans to live. This is just what it gets down to, the real shit, right? We can sit here and talk about tranny shit all day, and I'm never going to vote on tranny shit. I'm going to vote on this shit. I'm going to vote on, are people sick and dying on the streets, or are they being helped? Oh, are people flooding the border, or are they not? Oh, is the country more safe on the international stage or not? Oh, is our president coherent? Is he alive or dead? I really can't tell.
He will kill all e-vehicles and e-vehicle legislation, seeking to replace that with the development of a flying car.
Trump is the coolest president in my lifetime. He made Space Force. And now he's talking about flying cars. And this lived out trick in her little stupid blue hat is talking about she won't vote for him in part because of the flying cars in the future. This is also why I hate when people call progressives, because they're not progressive. They don't live in the future. Liberals actually live about 10 to 20 years in the past, which is why they're always hung up on things from the past. Why they act like we're still living in, Jim Crow. That's much farther in the past. But you see that. Liberals live like Matthew Shepard's currently getting drug across the road and Jim Crow is currently in effect, right? They catch up to things actually much later than conservatives. So I've never understood the argument that conservatives are in the past and liberals are in the future. Not really. She's not voting for Trump because there might be flying cars coming. Like, catch up, baby.
He believes that we could create a car that vertically takes off.
Hold on. We already have vehicles that take off vertically. What's a helicopter? Y'all are weird.
He will push Congress to pass legislation that would give every American the right to concealed carry anywhere at any time. And he will revoke any...
You're making this worse for yourself. You're making... Not one thing is hitting, babe. Not one thing is hitting. Y'all want to defund the police, and then you want to also, in the same hand, limit people's ability to protect themselves. Like, y'all are really just demons on earth.
And he will revoke any gun restrictions or legislation that seeks to inhibit people's ability to own guns that's been passed in the last several years. And he will take billions and billions of dollars from private university endowments by taxing, fining, and suing the universities. He specifically names Harvard in this one. And then he will use that money to create the American Academy. It is a free online college that will be free of wokeness that he will force employers to recognize as a bachelor's degree equivalent.
Y'all wanted free college so fucking bad? And these degrees aren't getting y'all any of the jobs they promised, so maybe they should be held accountable, right? Maybe they should be held accountable. And again, y'all just gotta read. Universities were the first target by the communists to infiltrate, to demoralize you, as they clearly have done. Right? So that's why college was the thing that actually made me start my channel and start fighting, start swinging on you hoes. I spent 1 year in an American college, was so turned off by it, by the obvious attempts at rearranging my brain, making me believe obvious lies, indoctrinating me, trying to make me a communist. I went to college in California, babes. I was so disgusted by the environment that I created a YouTube channel and started talking politics, and look how my life has blossomed. Thank you for everything. And that's called fighting for the light, right? You're rewarded when you fight for the light. You're living in squalor and destitute energy. Maybe not in your home, but squalor and destitute energy because you're fighting for darkness. Grown men march around in high heels to protest male violence against women. Well, guess that solves that problem. I can just see it now. I can see men across America raising their fists to beat their wife, and they stop because they remember. Y'all walked around in those red high heels for a reason. And again, this just goes back to the fact that women are so in need of men being men. And I know it sounds crazy because I chose not to be a man, but at least I did it well. Y'all are flopping. Like, women are so in need of men just being men, and men's response is, sure, we'll put on high heels. Y'all are going to hell for that. That is it for this episode of the Blaire White Project podcast. I love you. I really do. I don't say it just to say it. I'm not a liar. I love you. And subscribe to this podcast channel. Follow me on X and Instagram. And I'll see you in the next video. Mwah. Bye, guys.